Smartery 2025. I'm joined by Andrea Viaro, who's responsible for the utility scale segment with Stäubli, and Olivia Haldi, who's in business development, also for Stäubli. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me this morning. Now, Andrea, tell me, you've been involved in the PV industry for many years now, and particularly module makers. How would you describe the market environment for module makers in 2025?
Right, Jonathan, thank you for the question. And actually, the situation is still very dynamic, even though clearly set with a high overcapacity situation still today, which is lasting since a couple of years already, with a capacity which is almost double than what is actually the installation volume nowadays globally, which clearly sets a high pressure on manufacturers on selecting components carefully to really manage very properly the cost of production.
Olivia, Andrea has spoken about some of the risks. How do you kind of quantify those?
Well, I think, over the past years we have seen also in third-party studies that technical issues in PV systems, also with connectors, is having a huge impact also on the financials, on the profitability of PV large-scale systems. And this is, of course, something we work against it with our quality, reliability strategy right from the beginning when we invented the PV connectors in the industry back in the 90s.
And I want to talk about technology in just a moment, but it just occurred to me, how much awareness is there about the risks on the kind of DC cabling side of a PV project? Andrea?
Well, still, DC cabling remains as one of the main sources for risks and potential failures in the PV system, unfortunately. So this high price pressure and careful selection of components, quality can really increase even further the risk there. And that's why, of course, developers and installers really have to pay a lot of attention to make the really right choice.
And Olivia, how would you describe the awareness of this dynamic?
Still, I would say, somehow you can't really manage the unknown. So if you're not aware of it, you can't deal with it, or you can't do really a choice. Of course, we try to push that really into the industry, to create that awareness also through training, education.
There's also a lot of change when it comes to technology.
That's right.
Right? There was a perovskite tandem module just a few halls over. Of course, the transition to large format modules, and now TOPCon is totally in the mainstream. Andrea, as a bit of a module technology expert, how would you describe kind of the challenges with this fast-moving technological landscape?
I would say it's challenging and exciting at the same time because technology really evolves fast in the industry. We are used to that, but the evolution, especially recently, is really accelerating in my view. You mentioned perovskites or double junction, heterojunction technologies are really boosting the power and the performance of the modules really up dramatically. This stresses not only the modules structure, but also the overall system configuration. So also DC wiring, DC cabling is also part of it. And clearly it's important to make sure that all the components can really support that, higher power, higher current, and voltage, also very important parameters to make sure that the system can really work properly together and perform.
Yeah, and we saw when there was the very rapid transition to the large format module, quality issues started to emerge relatively quickly, and the industry had to learn fast to cope with these new challenges. Andrea mentioned EPCs and developers and the importance of raising awareness of the DC cabling. Stäubli is rolling out enhanced services for the downstream segment as well. Olivia, what can you tell me about that?
Well, I mean, what we've seen in the PV systems, these technical issues, either it comes from bad quality, low quality. That's of course a risk, but as well on top of that, even if we provide a quality product to the industry, it's not enough. We have like comprehensive, holistic approach. So we also advise the asset owners, the EPCs, right, through all the different stages of a PV project, from the planning, design, over installation and operating with these services.
We've spoken about how dynamic a marketplace it is in 2025 and PV more generally. Well, how would you describe, Andrea, Stäubli's place in that marketplace this year?
Technology is evolving very fast, as we said, so modules are getting more powerful, and of course we need to make sure that also Stäubli supports the industry evolution with the role that we have since decades in the industry, not only in quality but also in new solutions for the industry to support the technology trends in increased power of modules, for instance, higher currents with larger cable cross sections, bigger connectors clearly to support that, higher voltage system. 2000 volts is now potentially becoming the new trend quite soon, maybe 3000 volts, but also maybe the shift from copper conductor aluminum to aluminum conductors, which might become the next mainstream solution also for the DC wiring to optimize costs also on that part of the system.
Olivia, what's your take?
Also to have like supporting that sustainability approach. So if we build PV systems out there to generate green energy, the best way is that these the systems will, work for 25 years plus without any downtimes, without replacing every second year the components. And this is what our take is, I would say.
Yeah, reliability and resilience has been a big theme here at the Smartery 2025. Andrea Viaro, Olivia Haldi, thank you very much for joining me here in Munich. My name is Jonathan Gifford from Climate Copy, and thank you for watching.